right, 10 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. You ever watch an episode of I Love Lucy? And you say to yourself, oh my gosh, Ricky was not nice to Lucy. He treated her like she was a dummy or something like that. And then you move forward to the years of All in the Family. You see Archie with Edith, right? And Archie was the same exact way, except the way it was perceived as, oh my gosh, look at this dopey guy treating his wife so bad. That's so bad, right? We still do the same thing. We We like to think that we are progressing and we're waking up and we're starting to be fairer. And I think we are. But there's a lot of ways that we may be needing to pay a little bit more attention to some of the things we do. Sara Wachter-Boettcher is on the phone. She's a web consultant based in Philadelphia. She helps organizations make sense of their digital content, and she's got a book. I do have the cover of the book on the live streaming podcast that we're doing right now. It'll be on the recorded podcast this afternoon. The book is called Technically Wrong: Sexist Apps, Biased Algorithms, and Other Threats of Toxic Tech. Sara, I wish we had more time for this conversation. Good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. Are you in Philadelphia right now?
I sure am, enjoying a nice gray day.
Well, explain what you mean by sexist apps. Is there an example that I might be familiar with?
Sure. Unfortunately, there's a lot of examples, but when I talk about things like sexism in tech products, what I'm really talking about is the way that the people's biases, in Silicon Valley actually find their way into how the products work. So, for example, a really obvious one is something like Apple Health. When that app launched a couple years ago, you could track your vitamin intake, you could track your diet, you could track your exercise, you could track what Apple said was all your health metrics that matter. But one of the things it didn't track was periods, which is pretty surprising when you consider how many people in the world have periods. And also,
yeah,
periods is like one of the most common things that people track about their health. Like for millennia, humans have tracked their periods, but nope, this app just didn't do that. And it took them a full year to add that feature in.
Is that a forgivable thing? I mean, if you think about a bunch of guys putting these things together, you say, well, gosh, we didn't think of that.
I think at an individual level, you look at something like that, and sure, that is a forgivable offense. I think the problem is what you just said, right? We've got a bunch of guys putting this together who didn't think about that. And that's happening over and over again, and that's the part that I think is getting a lot less forgivable.
Okay, that was a pretty easy one to understand. So the book is called Technically Wrong, and are you getting feedback? I'm hoping, because whenever there's a watchdog and we say, oh my gosh, we got to correct something, are you getting feedback that, in other words, is your book making people realize we got to change things, or are they reluctant?
Well, I think I'm definitely getting a lot of feedback from people who are realizing this is a problem and who are realizing that there's a lot of work to be done, and also who are realizing that it's kind of a big problem. There's magnitude there because of the way that tech has become not just, something that is used from time to time or used at work or whatever, but it really embedded in every aspect of our lives, that this problem becomes really important and in fact can be really scary. So I am hearing a lot of good stuff. Obviously, you can't publish a book about sexism without expecting to get some kind of criticism. But for the most part, I've heard from a lot of people who really want to bring more awareness into the work that they're doing, and people who aren't in tech saying, oh wow, I've been frustrated by tech before, but I couldn't quite put my finger on why, and this is really helpful.
Well, I think it's important to point out. I mean, in the intro, I used kind of a lame example of I Love Lucy, but that's the way we viewed the world back then, and we sort of started waking up and realizing that wasn't exactly right. And I think you're helping us do the same thing with this new world that we're living in with technology. We've heard similar things about left-handed people who feel left out sometimes, or African American people who feel left out. But I'm wondering how much of it is maybe cringeworthy, but still innocent.
Well, I guess that I wouldn't say any of it is innocent, and I say that because I think that kind of says that removes responsibility. I think the tech industry has a lot of money and a lot of power, and it has a responsibility to do better. And so I do think that it is unintentional, but I don't think unintentional and innocent are the same thing. What I would say is that it may be unintentional, but you have the resources and you have the education that you ought to be doing better than this. And the fact that you're not, to the tech industry, is a choice. And I want to push back against that choice.
I hear what you're saying, yeah.
You bring up about the auto tagging system, how that still has a little bit more way to go.
Yeah, so that's a really big thing I want to talk about in the book, is that there's examples of sexism or racism at kind of that surface level, like the Apple Health lacking a period tracker. But when you get to a deeper level, it can get a little scary when you look at things like algorithms and artificial intelligence. So the example that you mentioned is about, Google Photos launched this automatic image tagging system, which would go through your photos and it would say, okay, this is a picture of a cat and this is a picture of a bicycle, etc., so that you could then search your photos later by just using a keyword and pull up something that you had taken in the past. It's a great idea, but one of the problems with it is that image recognition is going to get it wrong sometimes. And one of the ways it got it wrong a little while ago was it took a photo of two black people and it tagged it with the word gorillas, and it was really offensive. Obviously, that's
that's pretty bad. Yeah,
it blew up. But what I thought was really important about that discussion was that it's not just that. I mean, that happened to be a racial slur. That was a really ugly gaffe. But when you look a little deeper, after that happened, one of the engineers who worked on that project, he said, we're going to make some fixes to the product itself, and one of the things we need to do is make Google Photos better at recognizing dark-skinned faces. And so what he was saying was that they had launched that product when it wasn't very good at identifying dark-skinned faces, and the way that happens is if you have trained the algorithm. So the way you teach this is you're like, here's 3,000 photos of cats. Now you know what cats look like, and you can tag things with the word cat later. They had trained the algorithm without having enough representation of people of color. So it wasn't as good at identifying people of color in photos as it was at identifying white people. And that's a problem.
Yeah, I had this happen to me.
That then plays out over,
I had this happen to me, Sarah. I had one. I think it was Facebook that said I was a garden gnome. There was a garden. Do you remember that, Rob? Remember that?
I do. Yeah.
I got a thing. Oh, you've been tagged in the photo. Where? And I go to this photo, and there's this beautiful lady who we all know. It's a lady here in town. And I'm saying, where am I in this picture? And then I do a little hover thing, and there I am. It's a garden gnome.
Oh my goodness.
I know. So, yeah.
So, these systems are going to get it wrong sometimes. And sometimes it's funny when they get it wrong. But sometimes when they get it wrong, it's really telling that there's actually a deeper problem.
Wow. Well, good for you for pointing this stuff out. I think there's nothing wrong with pointing out mistakes that we make. And I don't know. Yeah, you sound pretty sure that it's not so innocent. And I guess I get your point that with that much money behind them, they should be able to hire people who would catch these things. If maybe more women were working on the development, then they would have not excluded periods, for example, in the health app. So,
absolutely.
I wonder how much we exclude people of foreign languages, with some of those things too.
Oh, you also mentioned.
Absolutely,
You also mentioned about Siri. People were joking, with Siri, like, I want to go out and shoot myself, and then Siri rattled off the number of gun, stores in the area.
Really?
Yeah, so this is one of the reasons I think it's not so innocent anymore, even though it's unintentional. So that was way back in 2011 when Siri was new, and Apple caught wind of this, and they were really upset about it, and they apologized, and so they started if Siri identified you as saying something that it seemed like it might be suicidal, they would connect you with resources for the suicide prevention hotline. But the thing is, last year, researchers found and published a study in JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association, that Siri didn't understand queries related to things like rape or sexual assault, and also didn't understand certain medical emergencies. And what I found when I kind of looked at this and that study came out was that a lot of times Siri would respond with a joke. She would say something like, "Oh, well, that's not such a big deal," and it was really offensive. And of course, it wasn't intentional, right? But my thought was, well, okay, if in 2011 you realized that you were having these terrible responses, if somebody talked about killing themselves, why didn't you kind of take a step back and look at the broader problem? Why did you only fix that one thing?
Good
and I
point.
think that's the kind of problem in technology we see.
Well, you have done an outstanding job. It sounds like something that we will all be thanking you for as things start to get better. If somebody doesn't point out what's wrong, then things don't get better. And so it sounds like that's what you've done, Sara. The book is called Technically Wrong. If you're looking at the streaming video, that's the cover. And I found that on Amazon. You're getting great reviews. Do you have a website you want to direct us to?
Yeah, it's sarawb.com with no H on Sara.
Okay, sarawb.com with no H on Sara. Well, thank you, Sara Wachter-Boettcher, for being on the show with us today, and thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We will be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Hi, this is JP from Penn Flooring here in Ocala. I would like to invite you to come in and visit our spacious showroom where we have solutions for every style and budget. From wall-to-wall carpet to hardwood floors and tiles, we have an unsurpassed selection of flooring. At Penn Flooring, we've provided quality customer service with a family touch for over 25 years. Visit our website at pennflooring.com.